Hello, welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
And today we're going to be discussing Quorum. So this is in the DeVere medium box line, and the designers are Raul Franco and Fran Martinez.
This is about the size of like the White Castle box, but you'll notice that it is much more. There's much more room in the box.
There's air.
Yeah.
It's not like busting at the seams. Yeah.
Yes, DeVere often over-crams these games. This one fits this box size just right, actually.
Oh, like a diddle diddle dumpling.
Glove.
Not diddle diddle dumpling. Who is that girl with the blonde hair?
Rumpelstiltskin.
No, and the bears?
Rumpelstiltskin.
The bears, Chris, the bears. Anywho, I'm going to show you how to play this. Goldilocks. Quorum is a card game where players are going to be building a tableau of 12 cards by the end of the game. And the goal of this tableau is to do 8 or 9 different types of scoring. Like there's just a ton of scoring that's going to be going on. And there's a player reference card with all the different types of scoring that will happen. So every single one of these is going to score, and then every single one of these is going to score. The actual turns of the game are very simple. On a turn, players are going to have 4 cards in hand. They're going to draw one of the cards from the lineup, and then they're going to play one of their cards into, oops, those are upside down. They're going to play one of their cards into their tableau. And then they'll move up on the banner that's associated with that card, that many steps. So this has 2 on the yellow snake track. So then the player would move 2 on the yellow snake track, and that would be their turn. The lineup would then refill for the next player, and you just continue in circles doing that. Next, I want to talk about the 2 different types of cards in the game. So we have the Rome cards, which on the back show what color banner is going to be on the front. So you see that that's a brown banner there. And then on the other side of the card, they're going to have a different color and a different symbol in the upper right-hand corner, and that's going to be just different types of scoring there. And I'll explain the scoring a little bit more in the future. But the other type of card is going to be the God cards. Now, these come out face down into the lineup. You don't know what you're going to get, but when you choose to pick this card, you'll flip it over and reveal it, and then you're going to choose which track you want to place it on, because whatever track it goes on, you get a free +1 movement onto it. So I would get 1 movement on the brown track. And then you're going to change the symbols to the right and to the left, depending on whether it's plus or minus. So these are totally different. They change depending on the card, but this one happens to be pluses. So both of these over here on the side are actually going to increase their multipliers up to 3. Then this card will go into the player's hand, and it's going to actually become a permanent space in this hand. So you can only ever have 4 cards by the end of the turn. And so the player is going to have to play one of their Rome cards in addition to the one they just played. But now in the future, they're going to have less options because they never get to have more than the 4 cards in hand. All right, let's go ahead and take a closer look at these cards over here. These are our scoring objective cards, and I'm just going to briefly explain how these work. So this first card over here is going to be based on where you are on these tracks and the multipliers of where they're at. Africa and Asia are going to be whatever your multiplier is on the track times the number 1 shields in your tableau and the number 2 shields in your tableau. And remember, once again, that these tracks have to do with who's in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. And so, for example, this track over here is only worth 1 victory point. So only the person in the lead is going to even be able to score this track. So if this is where we were at the end of the game, if I wanted to score brown, my multiplier would be 1 times whatever the brown multiplier is, but only for blue, because you always subtract 1 for every subsequent person in line. So speaking of brown, the next 4 columns over here, the next 4 rows over here are going to be multipliers times these symbols on the card. And so Macedonia is going to be multipliers for the brown card. The Hispania is going to be multipliers for the blue card. So the colors are associated to the symbols on the upper right-hand corner. They do not have to do with the symbols on the back. For example, this is a purple card on the back. That does not have to do with the banner multipliers. It is only the front facing of the card. Now, the other chunk of scoring is over here. There are 4 colors for the face-up cards, even though there are 6 banner colors. So Military has to do with getting sequencing in order. So you want like 1, 2, 3 shields. So I've got a 1, a 2, and a 3 shield. So that's going to score in those orders. The trade is you're wanting to get multiples of the same item. So right now out of my blue, the only thing that I have multiples of are the sheep. So then you would look over at this little chart over here and the sheep would be worth 2 points. Then we have the brown cards. These you just want different pictures. So right now we have 3 different pictures, so that would be worth 8 points. And then finally, the intrigue cards have to do with the 3 power shield. So I think I only have 2 of those, so I'd multiply those 2 times the number of intrigue cards that I have. All right, so that's the gist of how you play. Just a reminder, everyone's going to be playing 12 cards in their tableau, and then you will go ahead and you will score up all the different types of scoring, and then the person with the most points at the end is going to be the winner. All right, so let's start off with the production and the theming and all of that. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I'm very charmed by this artwork. Bea Tormo's the illustrator on this one, and I think it conveys to me about the weight of this game. You know what I mean? It's not one I'm going to take too seriously, and it has that look that's just kind of this game's going to be a little bit sillier, right? It's not a dry, thinky Euro per se, but it is a little bit trickier scoring-wise, I think, than it looks like it's going to be, but it's also not a very complicated game, if that makes sense.
Okay. I think production-wise, the pieces are just small. Like, they're hard to pick up those little pieces, and the board is tiny. The tracks are tiny. I feel like if everything was just a little bit bigger, it would be easier to deal with and not knock other people around, especially when the score tracker is also... the pieces are like bigger than the numbers on the score tracker.
I agree. I wish that part was a little bit better. I don't want it to be bigger of a box than this, but maybe a folding central board. Right?
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
Something just make it a little bit less for my chunky fingers.
Right. Just physically a little fiddly with stacking those pieces. Oh no, we're both on 4 on the track. Oh no. Are you sure you don't have 3 points? I'll let you have 5.
Which luckily you do all the scoring at the end. So it's not like you're working on tracks along with working on the scoring in the middle, because otherwise that would be a hot mess.
That's true.
When you talk about the weight of this, I think that you're right about the visual design of it. It's a very simple game. Draw a card, play a card. Do that 12 times, score up. Like you could play this with a little kid that doesn't know anything and they're playing. You know what I mean? It'll create some randomness, but
it certainly would. Yeah. I think the problem is that, and it's not I guess I should be careful what as I say. I think the thing is that, the structure of the game, so simple.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, and then there's 4 different colors of cards, and they all have different ways that the cards themselves score. Got it, okay. Is this number up here a number of victory points? No. That ties into the scoring bonus of a track over here or of a card over here.
Yeah. But the tracks change the value that they are worth depending on where you're in line and depending on what the numbers are underneath it. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of multipliers. I think that this is my biggest issue with this I love games that score a bajillion different ways, right? I love Point Salad. I love Acropolis. I love these type of games. But this one I just found to be super confusing to teach, super confusing to understand. And I think the biggest struggle that I have with it is that the banners that move you on the tracks, 4 of those colors also match the color of cards. And so you have the intrigue cards that are yellow, but you also have a yellow track and a yellow banner that's also a snake. And the snake is not the same thing as the intrigue cards. And so that is so confusing to people to understand their first game. It is a big struggle that I've had teaching this game.
I agree. And there is a purpose, right? So some people, Tom complains about this a lot. Why are 2 different elements of a game colored the same when they're not related? In this game, they are. However, you might have, the trickiest part is that you might play a green card, a green military card that has its own military scoring, but it has a yellow banner, which is going to be a multiplier for the yellow track. You might also
Which will multiply the yellow cards at the end.
Which will multiply the yellow cards. You see the connections here, right? It matters that the colors of the cards and the tracks are the same. They have a purpose for matching. However, it almost adds more confusion than if they were all just kind of disparate elements.
Yeah.
You know, if this track just said multiply by the number of snake symbols you've collected, and you're like, cool, I got them, right? But the fact that they are color coordinated is like kind of helpful until it's not.
Yeah. And then because the back of the cards have one color and the front of the cards is a different color, it's also confusing because the back shows the banner that you're going to move up on the front of the card.
Okay, someone goes, oh, this next card over here is going to be a purple card. Well, there's no purple cards in the game.
Nope.
There's a purple banner on a yellow card that moves you up the purple track.
If you're confused by this explanation, then you understand why this is confusing.
This is one of your biggest drawbacks.
It's my biggest drawback is just the teaching and the struggle of it. The actual gameplay I think is simple, and I think that it's. I enjoy games where you can't do it all. So you're like, oh, I play a green card because I want to focus in on green cards. That moves me up on the blue track. Am I going to play blue cards? I don't know if I'm going to play blue cards. But if I do play blue cards, then I also have to think about the other blue scoring, which is the pieces. So I enjoy that mind meld. Mm-hmm. But I also don't know how much the scores are going to change drastically when everybody is playing ideal. Like, it just feels like everything is worth a little bit of points.
You always run that risk with these types of games, but I find that there's so many different elements of what you're trying to balance that it still feels tense. And that's the thing for me, right? In a point salad game where it feels like it lacks tension because you're like, I collect a piece of wood at 3 points. Mm-hmm. Why? I don't know. I'll trade the piece of wood in for 3 points and a brick. Every time I collect bricks, 2 points, right? At that point, it feels like everything's kind of meaningless.
Yeah.
And in this one, I still feel that struggle. It's my turn. Okay, if I take that trade card, the blue card, it adds to symbols that I've already collected, good. But it moves me up a track I would rather not move up. I could take this card instead, right? I'm going to go off of my gut and feel like this is probably better. And I like those moments in games, right?
Yeah.
There's enough interaction where people might pass you up on the tracks that there are some guaranteed scoring, and then there's some riskier scoring. And I think that, for me, that's what kind of elevates this above just like every card scores you some number of points.
Mm-hmm. And I think strategically, like, my thought of when I'm like, someone's learning this for the first time, I'm like, just pick a color of card and focus in on whatever that main scoring objective is specifically for that color, and the tracks will come. Like, eventually, as you get into the game and you've played, 5, 6, 7 cards, you're starting to realize, okay, now I understand what my scoring is, what the tracks are. Like, I think that I do appreciate that they have that base scoring, especially because the tracks are very volatile. If you've got players that are avoiding the god cards and they're just kind of like sloughing them off to the side and wiping the market regularly, there's not a lot of volatility there. But if you get a lot of god cards, especially the negative ones, and all of those scorings are like ×1, then suddenly the regular base scoring is worth so much more. And on top of that, only the first person in line actually gets to score anything.
Yeah.
So it makes those tracks, you feel like you're fighting so hard to get like 3 points.
You just shared a wonderful Eurogame affirmation. Tracks will come. Just play the cards, tracks will come.
Yes, they will. They will. Every card will move you on a track somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think final thoughts on this. I feel like I've shared a lot of thoughts in general, but I'm going to give this a 6. I feel like it's fine. The actual gameplay of it, like I said, is pretty simple. I think it's fine, but there's just so many other games that do this like multi-level scoring cool stuff that combines that I feel like is, 1, easier to understand, and 2, I think easier to affect the outcome. I feel like that is a bit of a struggle with me with this. So 6 for me.
For me, I'm coming in at a 7. I really enjoy the card play in this, but I'm not unaware of the difficulties of teaching it and the confusion, and halfway through the game someone going, oh, this is not multiplying green cards, right? But I still find this worth the effort of learning and worth that clarification, because I have so much fun trying to do these complicated card combinations, right, of moving up the tracks and making sure I'm not investing really heavy into something that isn't worth much while ignoring something that I could have done elsewise for more points. I like that balance of the guaranteed points of the cards you've collected versus what players can interact and affect over in the middle. I like the aspect that those god cards, yes, people could change and volatilize the things over there, but then that eats up a space in their hand. So people are at least a little reticent to do it. It's not like it's just like a common let's all just beat up on someone. No, you really have to think about that, right? You're cutting off opportunity of range of cards that you have to play when you do that. So I appreciate all of that stuff. Yeah, it has its little flaws for me, but a 7 to score, I'm recommending this because if you find it worth it to deal with a little bit of a bumpy first teach, I think it's a very fun game underneath the hood.
Okay. You'll be flipping those cards over, that player aid many times. But it has a player aid, so.
It does, yeah.
It does.
And don't worry, tracks will come.
They will come. Anyways, thanks for joining us today. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I am Chris Yi.
Quorum. Tracks will come.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us for that video. If you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, make sure you check out what's happening where I'll cover an app on an iOS or a Switch device, and you can check it out along with me. Thanks very much. You've been watching The Dice Tower.